Greetings and salutations, and thank you for clicking on this video. Before we get into it, let me assure you that I am not complaining. Also, let me assure you that I am not bitching about something that somebody posted in a comment to one of my videos or on some other forum that I am taking personally. I do not need to be reminded that trolls should be ignored, nor do I need to be told that I'm doing a great job and I should keep doing it, because what I'm talking about in this video is not my personal feelings about something that somebody said. What I'm going to do is make some observations about how the Linux community communicates within itself. And I would also like to talk a little bit about how the Linux community is perceived from people who are not in it. And the title for this video comes from an old show business term, too hip for the room. And it means if you're a comedian, some places you don't do as well as you would in other places. So if you're too hip for the room, you might go in there and start telling some rather suave jokes, and the audience doesn't get it because you're in some podunk town somewhere. And too hip for the room can also describe a situation where you're used to talking to one group of people and they get what you're saying, and then for some reason you find yourself talking to a much broader group of people and they don't get what you're saying. And that's kind of the way I felt as time went by after I posted this video called The End of Ubuntu as We Know It. So that's where the title comes from, and that's what this is about. So for those of you who have been living under a rock, on April the 5th, Mark Shuttleworth, the founder of Ubuntu, announced the end of a bunch of projects that they have been working on for a very long time. And one of them was Unity 8, which is the next version of the Unity desktop. He also announced that they are going to be dropping any sort of forward development on Unity 7, which is the desktop that currently ships in Ubuntu and has been shipping for quite some time. And he said that Ubuntu 18.04, which is the next long-term support release due out in a year, is now going to ship with the GNOME desktop. Also, he talked about that they were going to be dropping their efforts to develop the Mir display manager. They were going to quit working on Ubuntu Touch. The whole concept of convergence was something that they were going to walk away from and they weren't going to do. Essentially, they have discontinued a huge chunk of the projects that the Canonical company has going. And unfortunately, it has come to light that probably as much as 60% of the employees that work for Canonical are going to lose their jobs. And that sucks. And this seems to be money driven. I posted a video where I said that they lost about $350 million last year. It's more like, it's between 300 and 350 million, somewhere in there. So this seems to be a business move. They want to concentrate on what works. Some folks expressed fear that Ubuntu was going to go away. If you're currently using Ubuntu with Unity on it and you like it, don't worry about it. It's going to be very well supported until 2021, at least the current long-term support. So just want to make sure I put that up there. If you're on Ubuntu now, don't worry. Ubuntu's not going anywhere. It's just that the company that distributes Ubuntu is making some changes. That's it. So when I posted this here video, I did not expect the reaction that I got. I've been rather blown away by it. This video, as of when I'm recording this, which is, I don't know, between 1 and 2 in the morning here on the date that you'll see this published. I don't even know what day it is because I'm up in the middle of the night. The video has 75,000 views. And it was published on the 5th. So this is an incredible number of views for my videos. It usually takes me, I'd say anywhere from a year to 3 years to get 75,000 views on a video. I've got a few that have more than that, but they've been up for a long time. When I post a video, usually I get about maybe 2,000 to 3,000 views in the first week. and then interest tends to drop off, and then you'll get trickle views after that. That's just the way this channel works. I know I'm talking to a niche audience, and so it's fine. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying. But for some reason or another, this particular video just blew up. And not only has this video been watched by people within the Linux community, those who I'm used to talking to, it's also been seen by people at the fringes of the Linux community, and some people who have watched this video have been outside the community entirely. So the comments section is amazing. I have been going through, and I'm not exaggerating, in 300 to 500 comments every single day. Now, I can't respond to all of these comments. There's no way. This is an avalanche. And the comments have ranged from rank ignorance, like I said. You can obviously tell they don't know what you're talking about at all. Therefore, I'm too hip for the room. To very thoughtful and very insightful analysis by people who are hip. They know what's going on inside the community. And of course you have your smattering of idiots that just want to post anything, and the filters have been working overtime to get rid of the profanity. So this thing has just gone absolutely bonkers. It's touched a nerve, that's for sure, because everybody that sees it has to make a comment. And I have learned a great deal about the Linux community just by reading through these comments, how people react to things. The first thing that I know I've learned is that there were a lot of people out there who absolutely hated the Unity desktop, couldn't stand it, thought it was the worst thing because they were like, good riddance, I'm glad it's gone, I stopped using Ubuntu because of it, I'm glad they're going back to GNOME, blah, 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 blah. And then there were a few people who said, oh, I liked Unity, I hate to see it go away. And then there were those who are relatively new to the Linux world who misinterpreted what was said, and they thought that this meant that Ubuntu was now unstable and it was going to go somewhere. It's not going anywhere, gang. Ubuntu is going to continue. Most of what this company dropped didn't have anything directly to do with the Ubuntu operating system, the base system. And to tell you the truth, the desktop switch is not that huge of a deal. I've used both the latest versions of GNOME 3 and Unity, and with a few tweaks you can get them to act almost the same way. It's going to be really interesting to see how they do that. The bombshell here was the fact that you have a company that was working toward developing all of these different things going on. Ubuntu Touch for phones, which was a really important project. I can't count the number of comments from people who have said here, because in the video I stated, well, we really don't have an open source alternative for tablets and phones. We don't. And they go, well, Android is open source. No, it's not. Android is based on Linux, which is open source. But that's it. The part on the top is a Google product. And Google is not open source. Google Chrome, which is the browser I'm using right now, is not open source. They have proprietary bits in there, and in order to make Android work, you have to hook into the Google App Store. It's a Google product, folks. It's not an open source and free operating system. It's not. So that is one myth that popped up over and over again. Another odd one that I got was, in the video I mentioned Ubuntu Mate, which is the Ubuntu distribution that has the Mate desktop on it. And every time that I say anything public about Ubuntu Mate, and I mean any time, I get people who go, why are you saying Mate? It's spelled mate, M-A-T-E. And then I try and explain to them that, well, it's named after yerba mate, which is a South American drink, and blah, 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 blah. And people will press the point. I even sent one person the blog post that Martin Wimpress, who is the head developer for Ubuntu Mate, what he posted about the pronunciation and the fact that it's Mate. And the guy still said, gave me a bunch of crap about it. It's amazing how people will jump all over that. So if anybody from the Ubuntu Mate project is listening, you guys might want to consider changing up your marketing a little bit. And you also might want to consider that on your logo that appears on your desktop in the default wallpaper, that you put a little accent mark over that E. Because those of us out here who are providing content where we speak, and we actually have to say the name of this, are catching hell every time somebody sees it. It's amazing how many people are ignorant to the fact of that it's called Mate. And then there are those, I say gnome. So I was also corrected. It should be GNOME. Okay, I don't really care what you call these desktop environments. It makes no difference to me. If you want to use it and it works for you, that's great. But from the point of view of somebody who is trying to provide content, this garbage about rankling over how names are pronounced, it really gets on my nerves. I call it GNOME. I've called it GNOME since it came out in 1999, okay? So it's GNOME. You want to call it GNOME, you go right ahead. You want to call the Mate desktop Mate. You want to call the Budgie desktop Bungie. Whatever you want to do is fine with me. I'm just trying to figure out the right way to say it that will piss off the least amount of people. Because that's what guys like me who do comments, do stuff for the Linux community, that's what we have to do. And so it's just very interesting, the comments that were posted here. And like I said, it ranged from insightful, thoughtful analysis to rank ignorance. And a lot of people who clicked on this video that did comment, they didn't even, they stated, I didn't even know what Ubuntu was. So I don't know where this thing is being shared that people are saying that. That's interesting in and of itself. But that's another thing, is that this is a big deal to the Linux community. This particular subject that we're talking about, the fact that Canonical has, changed horses in the middle of the stream, this is big news. But for people who are outside of the Linux community, they have no clue what's going on, and it was stated in the comments. They don't know what it is. So it gives me a lot of insight into how the Linux community is perceived from outside the community. And I don't think people have a very high opinion of us because of the rankling that goes on, and can't quite make up our minds about what we want to call things and all that kind of stuff. So it's really made me think. I got to go off and scratch my head a little bit about this because, I feel like I kind of got, caught off guard by this because I didn't expect it to go to such a wide audience. And I'm used to talking to folks who know what I'm already talking about. And if I had any clue that this video was going to get 75,000 views in the first few days, I would have changed the presentation completely. And I would have talked more about the positives that Linux has to offer instead of the negatives, which is the rankling in the community. That's a negative. I've always said it was. I've always said this is a negative. So anyhow, I just wanted to post something and give you my observations on this. Of course, the whole Ubuntu flap that's going on it's staggering. There's not a whole lot of solid information. I've already posted 3 videos where I have talked about it, and I'm sure for some of you out there who are new to the community, you're probably wondering, why is he taking so much time on this? Because 75,000 people watched this video. That's why I'm taking time on it. Because this is big news. This makes a big difference. This is changing the face of the entire Linux community. And I've been watching a lot of things about what other people have said as well. The Linux Action Show posted today. Chris and Noah were in Dallas at Dell. And those are the kind of things that are ramifications. Speaking of Dell, there are several companies that ship Ubuntu as the default operating system on their computers. If Dell sells a computer with Linux on it, it comes with Ubuntu. If HP sells a computer with Linux, it comes with Ubuntu. If System 76 sells you a computer, it comes with Ubuntu. So them making a huge change like this makes the hardware vendors kind of take notice as well. Because that's a growing tide, is this. We have hardware that's being specifically sold and made for Linux these days. The days of having to go buy a Windows machine and reload it so you can use Linux are just about over, which I think is wonderful. But these guys are sitting up and taking notice. Another thing that's interesting is that the really big enterprise-grade distributions now all feature the GNOME desktop. Every one of them has the GNOME desktop. So if Ubuntu is going to GNOME in 1804, that's one. And then we have Red Hat, CentOS, and Fedora. All of those use GNOME by default. You can have other desktops, but usually we think of them as being distros that use GNOME. And then OpenSUSE ships with GNOME or KDE. You can pick it install, but it's still a really big implementation of the GNOME desktop. So all of these big distributions that are the spearhead of Linux development, they've all gone to GNOME. I mean, that's a big deal right there. So I think in the end, and I think I said this in the last video I posted, that I think in the end this is going to be good for Ubuntu, because I think that what they've been doing has been kind of distracting them away from the Ubuntu operating system itself. They've been trying to work on stuff to add to it. Now they're going to refocus on Ubuntu itself, because what they're really interested in is cloud and IoT and enterprise, where they're selling support packages, and that makes money for them. And that can only help the desktop. So I think in the end this is going to be good for Ubuntu. I think after the shakeout's over, now I really don't like to hear about people losing their jobs. And I mentioned Martin Wimpress earlier, and he recently started working for Canonical. So it makes me wonder, does Martin still have a job? Is Alan Pope still going to be there when this is all shook out? Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, thank you for listening to my ramble. I certainly do appreciate it. Just wanted to point some of this stuff out. Things have changed. The world has changed. I think this title to this video was dead on accurate. It's the end of Ubuntu as we know it, and in many ways it's the end of the Linux world as we know it. This is a big change. Things are changing. I think in the end it's going to be for the better, and I think it's good for a lot of reasons. I don't think it's the end of the world. I just think it's a change, and change is good. Thanks for watching, gang. Do check out Easy Linux on Facebook. We're talking about this there. Check out easylinux.com, by the way, for those of you who saw my last video. The problem with the registrars, all worked out. We good to go. There's not going to be any outage. Check out freedompenguin.com for lots of stories about how you can get practical use out of Linux from contributors such as myself. And we will talk again soon. Thanks for watching.